I don't know why I go over the lobes of the brain. I don't know why books even include them anymore. These lobes are really, really general areas of the brain. So 30 years ago, learning about lobes was kind of all we had. But today we have so much more information about the brain. We know more specific areas within these lobes that perform certain functions. But, let's go over them as a general intro. There are five lobes of the brain, but only four of them are named for the bone under which they are located. You can clearly see the four lobes pictured here. The fifth lobe is called the insula, which is deep to the other four. So if we peeled back some of the brain tissue here on this picture, we'd be able to see the insula. Your frontal lobe is kind of the seat of your personality. All the decisions that you make take place here. I had a friend in high school who suffered a frontal lobe injury from a car accident, and she was a pretty different person afterward. A lot happier, a lot more willing to take risks. So maybe it was an improvement. Your frontal lobe is doing the heavy lifting when you're studying. This is where you store specific memories. So when faced with a situation where you have to make a decision, you recall past experiences and consequences to make that decision. When we learned about the spinal cord, we realized that sensory was posterior and motor was anterior, or sensory was dorsal and motor was ventral. That still applies here to the brain. Your frontal lobe houses two areas or cortices, the singular of which is cortex. It houses the premotor cortex and the primary motor cortex. And all somatic motor output to your skeletal muscles leaves by way of these two areas. The premotor cortex plans the output, and the primary motor cortex sends that output instructions down the spinal cord. In many areas of the brain, you'll find a cortex that senses something and says, I, I hear, see, found, touched this. And then you'll have a cortex that interprets that sensation. The occipital lobe is involved only in visual awareness and visual processing. It's a two-step process. At first, the occipital lobe acknowledges that you saw something, and then the occipital association area will process that information and put meaning to it. The parietal lobe is like the kitchen drawer. It does everything. It does a lot of different jobs, displaying how using these lobes to learn about the brain might not be the best way of doing it. But look at what we have here: taste, language, touch, temperature, understanding math, knowing how to pack the trunk of a car. I once went on vacation with a bunch of people, and one of them was a German physicist, and we're all like trying to pack this little car to go on vacation. And at one point, I was like, "Why don't we let the man who has the most advanced spatial perception pack the trunk?" The same goes for your temporal lobe. It's a list of unconnected things, seemingly. Actually, the temporal and parietal lobes take a lot of information from your cranial nerves. So there's lots of sensory input here, almost all types, and lots of language, lots of learning. Not memory, but memory consolidation. So connecting things. So, like when you study for a test, the temporal lobe doesn't help you memorize, it helps you consolidate memories in order to memorize. And this is why you need to read it, you need to say it, you need to hear it, you need to draw it, and you need to do as much as you can to consolidate many memories into something that you can access for the practical. Just looking, just reading doesn't do it. You've got to work with the information. You've got to work with other people. You've got to hear it. You've got to say it. You've got to draw it. You've got to do all inputs to make it stick. The jobs of the insula and the temporal lobes, they overlap a little bit. What's unique to the insula, though, is emotion and empathy. This is where the limbic system, your emotional system, is housed. The limbic system, it's a bunch of areas of the brain that work together to produce emotions such as fear, addiction, anxiety, happiness. But no one talks about the insula. They just kind of talk about the limbic system, again, kind of indicating that these lobes have become a little outdated in their ability to help you learn the brain. But further evidence that the understanding of the brain has moved beyond generalized areas of the lobes and now has more specific things to speak about, like the limbic system, like um, the reticular activating system. I also want to point out that the insula lobe, it is what creates, like, as it says here, like visceral sensations. So you are not sick to your stomach, but before going on stage and speaking to 100 people, you are sick to your stomach. You create that visceral sensation out of fear and anxiety.